Cold War was the start of a new era, and many topics came with those 50 years. The nuclear tensions between the two countries brought bad outcomes and many good creative ones. Some of those outcomes were robots, bombs, a space race, and many more. The latter brought on a new genre and instilled many ideas. One of them was sci-fi, which contributed many artistic achievements to society. Have you ever asked yourself where RoboCop, The Terminator, and Back to the Future popped up from? The fear of the Soviet Union and the United States' secret KGB and CIA scientific projects is the origin of science fiction. Doesn't it make sense that sci-fi had its rise simultaneously with the Cold War? With imaginative writing and special effects, there's an estimate of 500 motion pictures created between the end of World War II and the time of the American Dream. Many films indicated indirect expressions of fears about communist invasions of the West, alien mind control, radioactive fallouts, and numerous others. Producers of the genre films mentioned were generally uncensored by government officials because they tried to mold the public opinion, favoring the US anti-commie effort. According to Joyce A. Evan, this rapid proliferation presents one of the most interesting developments in post-World War II film history, for never in the history of motion pictures has any other genre developed and multiplied so rapidly in so brief a period. Scientists were often represented as troublesome individuals who identified as obstructionists, using the reasoning of why they desired to save a destructive phenomenon only to study it. Most on the commie side were seen as evil brainiacs wishing to use the beauty of science to rule the world. Numerous science fiction movies were low-budget projects, using a 1940-esque detective film style. Although they intended to look fabulous, they were usually represented in a very bland manner. Many were shot in black and white, with bad lighting. Only a few films, such as Forbidden Planet, The Time Machine, and The Thing, were good-looking, as they hired famous expert sci-fi illustrators to do the heavy work. Many Americans were happy with the victory of World War II using atomic bombs. Many of you must know that America and the Allies won the War of Nations by dropping a nuke on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yet, it was not long before they feared their own medicine. When the Soviet Union tested their very own nuclear bomb in 1949, Americans were riled up with anxiety. The media started their work on rivaling the two superpowers, and American resentment towards communism became at an all-time high. And that's when sci-fi started contributing its part to the Cold War. The threat of communism ruling the world was actually genuine. They had already absorbed most of Eastern Europe, and if they conquered Western Europe, especially after it was still rebuilding due to World War II, things would have ended badly. America had to do something. As the hero, they had to fund propaganda campaigns against the evil commies, and movies, especially sci-fi movies, were part of them. Sci-fi was capable of even influencing the Federation of Atomic Scientists. The FAS was capable of molding the general population's fearful and resentful attitude towards nukes and war. Science fiction writers became respectable people. Science fiction books, movies, and comics became famous. Low-budget films were mostly marketed to teenagers, as they were seen as the primary audience. Teenagers watched them in drive-in movie theaters. Science fiction movies were viewed more than any other genre during this period. The teenage culture was identified by disposable income and consumerism. 4 themes are present in the sci-fi genre: extraterrestrial, alien invasion, mutants, and near annihilation of the Earth. Every one of these themes was related to significant world events that partook in the 1950s, the Golden Age. It reflected the horror and dismay of our population's atomic age. Americans feared failure in the face of the nuclear race. Hollywood used sci-fi to display how a nation could come to grips with post-war comprehension that the human population could annihilate itself completely, and a chunk of this terror came from the Red Scare. Sci-fi movies typically presented conflicting views between the 3 groups: the military, scientists, and governments. Many motion pictures had shown rural towns that could never stand a chance against any difficulties set by aliens and mutants. The rise of nuclear testing sites using such places as ordinary American towns in the desert in Nevada also became widespread news. Short stories like There Will Come Soft Rains were created as an inspiration for it. One local Gale Endress said there was a regular caravan of cars going out. We'd park on the side of the road, wait until it was all over, go home, have breakfast, get the kids off to school, and then go to work. It looked like the sun come up again. Nuclear testing sites became a regular thing, and many people stood against it. A movie named Them was created to express resentment towards the nuclear arms race. In particular, one sci-fi movie, On the Beach, depicts a really sad and realistic look at the world's ending via nuclear exchange. It represents the impact of nuclear war on the general population and how they die of radiation poisoning. It showed an expert-level representation of how nuclear war with the Soviet Union would take part. It illustrated not the usual bombs, but the actual effects of fallouts on everyday people. This video goes to show how the Cold War and science fiction were deeply intertwined on such authentic levels that it was scary. I think more people should know how both were significantly related.